Hi, I'm Dr. Melissa Magnuson, and this is Lessons Across Species. When people tell me their dog is anxious, I listen carefully. But over the years, I've learned to listen for something else too. Several years ago, I met a 120-pound Rottweiler named Rambo. Before I entered the exam room, I saw a warning in his chart recommending that he be muzzled because of previous concerns about aggression. When I discussed this with his owner, the conversation immediately became tense. She insisted everyone at the hospital misunderstood her dog. She became increasingly frustrated and began criticizing our staff and the hospital. And what caught my attention wasn't what she was saying, it was what Rambo was doing. As her frustration increased, his posture changed. He stood up, his body became more rigid, his attention narrowed. Then he positioned himself between us. At the same time, I noticed something happening inside of myself. I was becoming nervous, and Rambo, he noticed it. Dogs are incredibly skilled observers. They are constantly gathering information from the people around them. They notice our voices, our breathing, our posture, our movements, and our tension. Long before a dog growls or barks, they're often reading the room. In that moment, Rambo had spent several minutes watching his owner express anger and distrust towards me. Then he sensed a growing concern. From his perspective, the situation was becoming very clear. When his owner finally sat down and lowered her voice, Rambo immediately relaxed and sat down as well. The change was almost instant. That experience taught me something very important. Safety doesn't depend only on the animal standing in front of me. It depends on the entire emotional system surrounding that animal. Since then, I've noticed versions of this same pattern again and again. A client can arrive extremely anxious, and then they tell me how anxious their dog is. Or a client is fearful and hypervigilant, and their dog struggles to settle. Sometimes the household lives in a constant state of stress, and the dog seems to be carrying that stress too. Now, to be clear, not every anxious dog is anxious because of their owner. Behavior is very complex, and genetics matter, and medical conditions matter, and life experiences matter. But sometimes the dog is not the primary source of the anxiety. Sometimes the dog is reflecting it. One of the most interesting observations came during COVID. Many veterinary clinics stopped allowing owners into the building. Pets were brought inside while owners waited outside. Something surprising happened. Some dogs with long histories of being labeled difficult became easier to examine. Some fearful dogs appeared more relaxed. Not every dog, not every case, but enough to make veterinarians pay attention. The dog hadn't necessarily changed. The emotional environment had. Research increasingly supports what many experienced animal professionals have already observed for years. Scientists have documented emotional contagion between humans and dogs. Studies have also shown cortisol synchrony, meaning long-term stress patterns can become biologically linked between owners and their pets. In other words, our emotional states don't stop with us. They affect the animals sharing our lives. And that has changed how I approach conversations about canine anxiety. Of course, training matters. Sometimes medication is absolutely appropriate, and behavior plans can be incredibly helpful. But I also ask another question. What does the environment need? Because there is something that medication, training, and veterinary care cannot completely overcome. A dog living inside chronic, unmanaged stress is living inside that environment every day. This isn't about blame. Most people are carrying a tremendous amount right now. Work stress, financial stress, family responsibility, health concerns, just basically uncertainty. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is awareness. What surprises me most is how often people believe their emotions are hidden. Their dog knows otherwise. How you show up is often how your pet shows up. When you're calm, they notice. When you're fearful, they notice. And when you're frustrated, they notice. And when you're grounded, they notice that too. The nervous system is always communicating, even when no one says a word. So when someone tells me their dog is anxious, I still listen and I listen carefully. But I've also learned to quietly wonder about something else. Not just what the dog is feeling, but who the dog might be learning from. If this conversation was helpful, subscribe to the channel for more lessons I've learned through veterinary medicine. And if you'd like a deeper written version of the story, you'll find the full Lessons Across Species essay in my Substack.